Hello, my name is Scott Dawson, and this is my presentation about how to produce a children's book. In it, I go through my experiences in making the book The Lonely Little Fridge. But first, a couple of clarifications. This is not a presentation about how to write, nor is it a presentation about how to draw. There's a lot of other books around for that. This is about my experiences in getting my artwork and writing together into a book and getting that book into print. So, onwards. How complicated is a children's book anyway? There's a list I have of from plain text to text with images, and there's all the way to live action movies and comics. There's many ways to present a story. And for all of them, the writer has to design the story, lay out the plot, and create the characters and make sure all that fits together. But you can tell a story in many different ways. You can tell it with text only, you can tell it with images only, and a children's book, an illustrated children's book, fits in the middle. So let's see, what kinds of books can we have? The plain text only, the traditional way to present a story, an illustrated book, just plain text again, but there are illustrations beside it that are tied to various places in the text. But the text can still stand by itself. The next kind is what I call a fully illustrated text, where the every page has an illustration on it and the illustration covers most of the page, but the text can still stand independently. The next kind is what we call in English comics. Um, in this, there's an important change in that the text and the image are no longer independent. One can't stand separate from the other. They both work to create the story. I mean, and some comics don't even have words, but if there are words, they cannot exist outside of the pictures. Beyond comics, we have the world of motion, animated movies, and live action movies. These still require the same amount of story design, but they have so many more things in them as well, such as sound and vision, actors, and so on and so forth. Um, and the thing with these is, as it goes from text towards comics and animation, it gets more complicated, more people involved, and a longer time to make. So, where does an illustrated children's book fit into this? Let's have a look. One book here is called Nerdycorn, and it's fully illustrated but has plenty of space to put the text in. Um, every page is illustrated, and there's a lot of things going on outside the text, but still the text can stand by itself. Another book like this is C is for Camp, and it too is fully illustrated. And then we have the old Rupert Bear books, which have been published for over 100 years now, but they're still being published today. And these books do something I've never seen elsewhere. They have the story told by illustrations. They have two streams of text. One is poetry and serves as captions to the illustrations, and the other is prose at the bottom. And there's also a kind of headline that sort of tells the story as well. I've seen this called text comics, this style. And then my own book, The Lonely Little Fridge. It's fully illustrated, but not as heavily as some of the other books. Um, the illustrations are about halfway between an illustrated text and a fully illustrated text. And this had an effect on how I built the book. So let's have a look at the steps I went through in order to build the book. The first thing I did was write the text, and there wasn't very much of it. It was less than 2 pages long, but it's still text that stands by itself. Then I worked with an editor and a printer to get information on the size and format of the book. And I also contacted the National Library to get an ISBN. And then I was able to lay out the size of the page and everything on my computer. The next thing I did was do a draft drawings, laying out where every piece of text would go and what the drawings would approximately be doing. And of course, this is far from the final drawings. The next step was to actually do the final drawings. So I spent an entire holiday break doing nothing but draw. And these particular drawings are I sketched in pencil, then I inked in, and then I watercolored over the India ink. And so, yeah, the next one I had to do a larger piece of artwork for the cover, and with the layout information from the printer to design the format of the book, it also provided a cover template, so I knew how big I had to make the artwork. I also had to know where things would be on the cover so I didn't have important artwork that would be hidden by it. The next step was to scan the artwork into my computer and then clean it up. And then I was able to insert every picture onto the page alongside the text. And I also inserted the big image onto the cover underneath all the other things on the cover. Then I created print-ready files, and these were uploaded to the printer. And after they passed printer's error checks, the printer made them available, and I was able to order a book, and it came, my first book. Once it was done, I was also required to send a copy to the National Library. This is a legal thing in Canada. So it's the place where I got the ISBNs from. So I shipped off a copy to Ottawa, and eventually it showed up in their catalog. And I was dealing with a print on demand printer, and it provides a catalog to the retailers around the world. So eventually my book showed up in their catalog and people could order it. And this is where self-publishing, um, we have to do also marketing, how to get things into shops, how to get people to know about our book. These are a lot of the things that an editor and a publisher can help you with, but ultimately it's a whole different set of skills that you have to learn. And when I was putting together the book, and how can I help, what things did I have to deal with printing and be aware of? So part of it is, how does the artwork go together? How do you do your artwork? Do you do it separately and scan it in? Do you build it on the computer? This particular book, all my artwork was done outside in watercolor on paper, and then I scanned it in. And if you're working with an illustrator, this is where you have to really coordinate with them, make sure your draft is good, and you know exactly what you're doing, so you can tell the illustrator what you need, and they know what to do, and also have timelines and knowing when things are needed. There's different types of artwork. The simplest artwork is black and white, as in the top here. And then full color artwork is printed usually using the 4-color process, where you have 4 colors of ink that work together to give the illusion of a full spectrum of color. Um, If you want to get fancy, you can use custom mixed colors if you're getting your book printed at some printers that can handle this. So there's a whole series of standards with swatches where you can specify a color, and when you put it into your artwork, it gives a rough representation, but it's really a name, so the printer knows to use color 116U, and they know what ink color that is, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like on the screen. They'll know what to put and where to put it. So one thing I noticed with the printing is that depending on where I got printed, the color varied slightly and may not have been the same as the artwork. But for me, that didn't matter. I didn't need to be ultra precise. But if you do need to match your colors to things like a corporate standard or something, you can calibrate your screen and your scanner. And to calibrate your screen, you use a gadget called a spectrophotometer, which tells the monitor to display colors, measures them to see what it's actually giving you, and then does a calculation to figure out how to correct to make the monitor as close as possible to what it should be. Similarly, there's a scanner calibration target you can scan and then compare to what it should be, and then it does calculations to correct the scanner. This can be very helpful if you're scanning your own artwork. And then if you're printing the book, there's different kinds of printers that you can use, um, from small copy shops to vast online printers. So here's a few options. Small copy shops can print in black and white and some color. They have good customer service and you can deal with them directly, and they may be more flexible, but they have a maybe limited as well, although they can often have a relationship with a larger printer for jobs they can't do themselves. The online print on demand is a format where you upload to the printer. They will print according to order, and they furnish a catalog to retailers and distributors so that anywhere the catalog goes, your book can be ordered and they will print it on demand. This is a very good way for a self-publisher to get started, which is what I did. And then there's the traditional printers, which have things like offset and web printing. They can do custom colors and custom sizes, but they're also the most expensive and they have setup fees and minimum quantities. And when you print with them, you end up with a pallet full of books and you have to handle your own distribution, unlike the print on demand. So there are advantages and disadvantages to every kind of printing. Again, when you're creating your book, you have choices on how it's going to be printed or output. And one of them is between hardcover and paperback. And this affects, among other things, how you do your artwork. A hardcover cover needs more art on it than the paperback because the art has to extend onto the paper that wraps around the edge of the cover of the hardcover and gets stuck down by the end paper inside, for as opposed to on the paperback where it simply gets cut off. And then there's the whole world of electronic formats. A lot of books are published online these days in digital format, and I'll mention three versions. One is the PDF file, which tries to replicate the printed page as much as it can. It's actually what it was designed for and is how we send books to printers, but they're often used as an end format for the end reader as well, although there has to be certain adjustments made when you're exporting for the end user. It has to be smaller and easier to use. Another output format is the ebook. And ebooks, most of them are text only, and they reflow to fit the size of the screen of the device that you're looking on, your phone or a window on your computer screen. So it doesn't have a concept of fixed pages. It's just how many pages at the particular size you're looking at. And you can also change the text size and do other things. It's possible to build a book with illustrations in it that are fixed to locations in the text, and as you reflow the ebook, the illustrations move appropriately, but this is relatively difficult to do. There is a fixed format of ebook which tries to mimic the printed page, but a lot of these books are not readable on a lot of ebook readers. So I issued the Lonely Little Fridge in fixed format ebook, but a lot of people couldn't read it. And another online format for comics in particular is the vertical scroll, which is done by places like Webtoon. And here it's a simple, tall, narrow image that you start reading at the top and you just go down. And I was thinking of putting the Lonely Little Fridge out in this format, but it would require a complete redesign of the artwork. It's like a different page format. And then there's translations. I had the book translated into several languages, and for a children's book, that isn't necessarily extremely expensive because the text is so short. Uh, Commercial translators will charge somewhere around 20 cents a word, which adds up. So for a small book, it might be $100 or $200. For a major novel, it goes up into the thousands. And translation is a tricky thing as well. Um, when you're putting text on the page, it may be that the translation changes the sentence structure and it may not be possible to arrange it consistently the way you originally had it. So you have to be aware of this and be prepared to make adjustments to the layout. And when you do a translated book or any new format, actually, like paperback or hardcover, each one requires a new ISBN. It's considered a newly published book and gets uploaded and printed separately. So once you have translations out, you have a whole series of books, even if it's the same story. And in conclusion, making a print-ready file hides a whole lot of work. This is something that a lot of people don't know about, and it's almost like a third thing. You have the illustrator, the writer of the children's book, and then the person who prepares it for print. And it's a kind of a dance between all three of these. So hopefully this has given you a bit of a glimpse into what it's like to actually print a book. Once you've got your ideas, it's it's complicated, but it is very doable and there's a lot of help out there. So hopefully this has helped. Thank you.